helps us see the world with greater clarity. The value of human life
defines how we see and respond to those around us.
From the formation of a child's first tiny cell to life's final breath, all life has dignity and value.
Because each and every one of us is made in the image of God.
And that is why, when we talk about being pro-life, it's not just about a political issue.
It's a worldview. It's a life view. It's a way of looking at each
human life that transcends culture, class, race,
age, and opinion, knowing that we are all uniquely created in the image of God.
The sanctity of human rooted in Scripture and modeled
through the life of Jesus Christ, who said,
"Whatever you did for the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me."
When we begin to see others as God sees them, we're moved to care more deeply about those created in His image, and we will live each day in a way that honors our Creator.
We won't see the Scriptures as mere words, but as commands to express His heart through our actions.
Commands like speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves,
and ensure justice for those being crushed, or love your neighbor as yourself.
The sanctity of human life speaks to ancient questions.
Be a voice
for those who cannot speak for themselves.
May we not pass judgment on the woman facing an unexpected pregnancy,
but surround her with support, helping her to see
the child growing within her as a unique person with a life as valuable as her own.
So, reach out to orphans in distant lands or the foster child in our own backyard
who is waiting, hoping, and praying for a family to call their own.
Embrace those with special needs as a special reflection of the image of our Creator God.
Let us care for the widow in distress and loneliness.
And let us befriend those in prison.
Let us shine a light on practices that distort human dignity,
like human trafficking and the cycle of poverty that limits God-given potential and dreams.
Make sacrifices to meet the needs of those dying preventable deaths because they lack food, medicine, and clean water.
Let us rejoice in the image of God
as expressed through various skin colors and ethnic traditions,
refusing to tolerate racist attitudes that mock the one that created us.
Let us choose to see those who disagree with us as God sees them, treating them with respect and dignity,
while helping them to open their eyes to see the beauty and value of life.
That is what it means to be pro-life.
This is why we need to be a voice.
I dig that every time I see it. Did that open your eyes to what pro-life really is? It is so much more than this political ping pong game that is being played right now. It is so much more than just a women's reproductive agenda. It is valuing life from beginning to end and living in a way and serving in a way that shows that's what we believe. Living, serving, loving in a way that shows that's what we believe. Okay. Understanding the value of human life. Ooh, yeah. All right, that's our baby right there. 40 weeks gestation, newborn baby. We have talked about some of the options. Actually, you know what? Do we have that handout? Oh, who had the folder with the handout? Did I have that? The green half sheets, or did we leave it out there? Ooh, okay. it's an exercise. Do you guys have a pen or pens to write with or anything? Oh, okay. I don't think he sees it out there. It was in a manila folder. Yeah, it was a half sheet. Let me see. I did this exercise in class. If it's not out there, you know what? We can be flexible and figure out a way to do it. Do we see it? Okay. Let's see. Did I leave it up here? No, don't see it. All right. You know what? We can be flexible with it and just talk to each other. Because I don't. Dude, it's not mine. Okay, you know what? Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Let's pass out those sheets. And I want you to think about something. And could I get one of those? Thank you. Okay, I was in a classroom teaching, and it was a high school classroom, and you know, it's against Department of Education regulations to talk about abortion in classrooms, especially as a part of like a reproductive health lesson. So we never talk about abortion, but I was in a sociology class, and the kids we were talking about families and configuration and some of the difficulties that families would face, and then just some of the difficulties that teens overall were facing. So when it came to talking about options, we will wait. Okay. When it came to talking about options that a young couple may face when having to determine what to do with an unexpected pregnancy, the kids were like, well, you know, you can parent. So I wrote that on the board, or you could adopt. You could make an adoption plan. So I wrote that on the board, and then one of the young people said, well, or you could, you know, terminate the pregnancy. You could have an abortion. So I said yes, that is an option, but I'm not sure that we can actually talk about it here. And I looked at the teacher, and the teacher went, yeah. You know, so I was like, all right, cool. Let's come up with a creative way so none of us get in trouble for doing this. And it became a decision-making, a teaching opportunity, and I loved it. So I put these 3 options up, and I actually called the state of Michigan afterwards and told them what I'd done. And the lady on the phone was like, I've never heard this before. I think we're fine. I think we're fine. So I'm like, okay. But I use this whenever I can. Parenting, adoption, or termination. Those are the 3 options. And then I ask the kids, okay, who are the people who are most closely associated or are going to be affected by this pregnancy? So as high schoolers would say, the first thing, our parents. Okay, they weren't even thinking about the mom and dad of the baby. Our parents, I was like, you are absolutely right. Because if you're experiencing an unplanned pregnancy, your parents are going to be all up in it. What is happening? That's it. Then they were like, well, our friends too. Yes, that's true. And I was like, okay, and who else? And then one of them was like, oh, yeah, the mom. And it's like, yes. And then somebody else said, and the dad. And I was like, that's it. And then it was just quiet. And I was like, okay, there's somebody else who's a part of this pregnancy. And they sat there, and I was like, the baby? Okay. And they were like, oh yeah, the baby. But see, that's a very natural response that they had. They weren't even thinking about the babe being a part of this already, you know? And so I think we sometimes need to revisit that. You know, mom and dad definitely, but there's a reason that mom and dad are going to be mom and dad. And so we maybe should consider what's happening with the baby. So with that, then I was like, all right, so decision making, one of the things you do when you are weighing which way you should go is look at pros and cons for every option, which is what this turned into on the board. Mom, dad, and baby are listed there, and then I had them think about it. What are pros and cons for mom with parenting? Pros and cons for mom with adoption? Pros and cons for mom with termination, with abortion? Same with dad, same with baby. I want you to think about that. Doesn't have to be a dissertation, doesn't even have to be a full sentence, but I want you to think about and fill in the blanks. What do you think are pros and cons for mom, dad, and baby for each one of these categories listed here? We'll just take a couple of minutes to do that. Just write down what you think. And yeah, you guys can talk about it, definitely. Engage. Oh, yeah. Oh, hold on.
Okay. To dan te ka viklau sim ta ding ti himi tu kan to ding mi kha an unplanned pregnancy mo rin lau pin accidentally you pregnant right kami sitting e tum lau pi in fa na vun ding tiga anu ranga kha parenting ranga kha yang sia than hem ding pro sele fa anei tiga yang mi sia than hem ding sinan tum ta lawi anei mi fa siro kha na kha yang mi sa har san na ka tong ding timi kha nangam ding so adoption fachom ding por ranga te khai anu ni naw thak lawin kha achom ding tiga yang mi sia adoption por ranga than hem nan nu lawin mi ne na wa thang ding te yang mi sia than hem law nak te kha adoption tanga termination naw kan thak that ding kami te anu ranga naw that nak kha tu na yang sia than hem nakจนน้าวนัทธาแต่ก็ยังเสียอคอนเสียดนักแต่ขณะงานหนึ่งจนมีปัจจังป้าสังอ่ะตาขเท่าที่ฟ้าในเล่ยังมีเสียทันเห็มฟ้าในเล่ยังเสียทันเห็มเราแต่แบบมั่วจนน้าวตะบีกะเนตะบีกะเบบี้เตียงข้ากันตัวหนึ่งอันนู้นนี่ accidentally นั่นไหนนั้นอัทัดเราติกะยังมีเสียสังอ่ะไม่ลำสังอ่ะวัดทันเห็มดึงมีแต่มีบอกค่ะพรูขันจะเลยนุยดูตกเรามีเลยตุ้มตาใจในเรามีฟ้าสระยังมีเสียหัดสันนากันในดิ่งแต่มีค่าขวานั่นเร็ดหนึ่งมั้งเฟียงเก่าเต้โอเค
Okay, how are we coming? Raise your hand if you're finished. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's start talking about some of these. Okay, let's start talking about some of these. Let's start with first category, parenting and mom. Who can share? Who wants to share a pro, an advantage that mom, or an advantage to parenting for mom? Oh, okay.
She has a baby.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's good. Yeah, she has a baby. All right, that's good.
For the mom, I put learn to be selfless, and for the con, I put emotional distress.
Okay, good. Yeah, learn to be selfless and emotional distress. Did you have a con for mom, sweetie? Did you have a con? Oh, did you?
Okay. She's gonna be embarrassed in front of like her family.
Yeah, that's very real. That is very real. Embarrassment. Okay, all right. How about parenting for dad? What is an advantage? A pro and con for dad. Who wants to share? Pro and con.
For dad, I said puts roof and food, provides basically. And for con, I said most likely always at work.
Okay, most likely always at work. Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay. All right. Somebody else want to share?
Yeah. For pro.
Please.
Thank you. Having a kid itself is a success. We say 3 million sperm, and he made it. So that's a good thing. For the con, since it's unplanned, it's financial. Plus, I mean, we're not really mature. That's why unplanned.
Yeah, I see you. Good, good. Okay, somebody else with dad? Okay, how about for baby? What's a pro and a con for baby if parenting is chosen?
For pro, I put you get to grow up with your actual parents that made you.
Okay.
And for con, because due to the unpreparedness of your parents, you could have a harder life.
Okay, good. Ooh, did you hear that? Ooh, deep. I know. You got it. Ooh, all right, good deal. All right, let's move on then to, good job, you guys. Let's move on to adoption. You see how this is kind of rolling. Okay, so who's got a pro and con for mom with adoption that you want to share?
Adoption.
Okay, it's this young lady right here.
Yeah, okay. There's a chance that like the baby might be with a happy family, and the mother could be comforted by the idea that their child will be living peacefully with another family. And the con to that though is that the mom, she could be longing for that child, but she knows that the child is having a better life, and like that guilt inside of her will could build up.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Good deal. All right. Who's got something for dad with adoption? Pro and con. Advantage, disadvantage. Oh, come on now. Somebody share. You want to, son? No. Young man right here. Yeah. Do you want to share? Do you have pro and con for adoption? For dad, uh-huh.
หลายต้องต่างอ่ะโมยังน้องฟาเดในไทยเราประจังตำเปียนมีขมีปอดฟาเดอันโจมมอมุยซาเลขยังมีเสร็จทันแฮมดิ้งที่มีค่ะอินสุนมีเสียอันนั้นจังฟาเดนสปีกเกอร์ต้องเวทเดนจุกันจัดกันได้ตุ่มไปมั้งลองไว้
And he meant that. No, that's for real. No. Oh, okay. Nobody has anything for dad with adoption? Oh, yes. Okay. Oh, this woman.
Lose your child and might feel guilty. That's for the con.
Okay.
And pro is they're more likely to have more freedom.
Oh, okay. I got you. Say that one more time.
The pro.
The pro. Mm-hmm.
Lose their child and might feel guilty.
Okay, that's the con. And then the pro.
For your pro.
The pro. Oh, okay. The pro have more freedom.
Have more freedom. That's valid. Okay. All right. Baby with adoption. Okay. Got a young lady back here. Okay.
So for the baby will have a chance to live and live in a better environment because the baby is wanted. Okay. But for the con, the baby will have negative psychological issues as to wondering why the real parent gave he or she up.
Good. Okay. Excellent. Good thinking. Good thinking. Okay. Now let's move to the abortion category, the termination. All right. Who wants to share a pro and con for mom with the termination?
I thought that like for the mom, there would be like really relief because no one's going to judge them, and they would save a lot of money. And for the con, I did a research on this before, and mothers are more likely to have depression or like have a miscarriage later in life.
Oh, wow, okay. Social science in the house. All right. Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah. How about for dad, a pro and con with abortion? Okay.
Okay, pro, I have none because I don't believe in abortion.
Okay, son. That's okay.
And for the con, I guess you'll have to live with the guilt. So, yeah, it's probably
okay. Okay. So for the pro, he will. Oh, for the con, he'll have to live with the guilt. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Anybody got a pro?
Pro.
Okay. Okay. How about for the baby? Oh, I heard. Somebody said the baby's dead. No, and that's funny. When I did this with my son, he's 21 now. He was probably 15, 16, and he said the same thing. He was like, the baby gone. That's what he said. There's not. And he was like, how is there a pro? Okay. Anybody got a pro and a con?
Pro and con.
For the baby.
For the baby.
Oh, okay.
Okay, kan ngài tiếng Hoa cả.
So for the pro, I think that the baby, since like it's unplanned and stuff, so like he or she wouldn't have to go through the suffer and everything, you know. And for the con, I mean, the baby was supposed to be born and made by God, but like it wasn't like it didn't get to like experience what it's like to be like living and like to be a human being, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right. I think I saw somebody else. Yep.
For the pro, he doesn't have to live with the guilt that he was unplanned or unwanted. I don't have a con.
Okay.
I'm still thinking.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to give you both ooh, because that's deep. You know, what both you kids said, it's deep. Because in that classroom, that was probably that was probably the answer that the kids had the most difficult time with abortion. What is a pro and a con for the baby? And one young lady said exactly, like a combination of what you two said, what if, they weren't wanted anyway, so their life may be more difficult. Wouldn't it be better? This is what she said. See, and I don't cry a lot, but there are certain things that kind of take me to that place. She said, wouldn't it be better if maybe that baby just went on to heaven? Yes, I'm sorry? Mm-hmm. That's a good question, because the baby is still being formed, okay? So I can say, the word says, before you were born, I knew you. Before you were woven together in your mother's womb. So that tells me that there's connection. But that's yeah, that's the word according to Mama Humes. No, I know. So with that, what I said to her was, come here, baby, let me give you a hug, because she went somewhere with that. You could tell she had walked through some stuff. And so I said, I feel you. But then, and at this particular school, there had been some suicides, man, that had happened with some young people too, back then. And so this was an opportunity to talk about, what do you do when it feels like everything is coming at you? When it feels like, and I asked the kids, have you ever felt that before? Like there was so much pressure on you that you just felt like taking your hands off of it and going, I can't deal with this. And everybody in that classroom was like, yeah, but did it get better? Did you make it through what that thing is? Are you pushing to get through whatever that thing is that's trying to, word again, kill, steal, and destroy your mind, your faith, your life? Did you get through? And they were like, yeah. Are you pushing? Yeah. Then my response to that is, how can we take away plan and purpose because of what we think might happen to someone who has not even been born yet? Because of what we think we can't do. If God has ordained it, then there is a way. And that right there makes no sense to those who are looking at this through their humanness, okay? But that's what sets us apart. We don't see things with our human eyes. We see things through the eyes of Christ, through our spirit man. So we can get beyond the humanness, which we are going to talk about. What does a child need? Check this out. This humanness, this cash, okay? This, just to name a few, mom and dad. Here's what I say. Even if you're not together, I got classes you can come to teach you how to co-parent, because that's an important part of this too. Something that I teach single parents, specifically single moms, because there are questions that come up in a child's mind. Okay, why does my house look different? Why is mom not here? Or why is dad not here? We as parents need to be able to explain that in age-appropriate ways, never condemning the other partner, because what I always say, y'all, is he or she had something going on one night, apparently, okay? So let us not put all the blame on them. And remember that they are the other parent to this beautiful child that you have. Ooh. Y'all write checks like that? All right. This is from the latest, it's the last one that they've done, the USDA. Every year they were looking up to 2015, and I haven't seen a new one since, and they released this information in 2017. It always takes them a couple of years to do data. But 233,610, that's the average cost of raising a child from birth to the age of 17. And that's not including college, okay? So yeah, it's very real. People look at what they don't have in the moment, and I'm not discounting that. All I'm saying is there is help. There is help. And then revisiting the safe delivery of newborns, that's why that was in place, because parents who were feeling desperate were choosing to abandon their children and allowing them to die. Okay? And adoption, again, another option. If you feel that you cannot take care of this life, this child, this is an option. What I would like to see occur is maybe some more conversations about adoption. I talked to an adoptive father recently who was telling me about the costs associated with adoption. There's a lot of money, with that here in the United States. So I'd like to see more conversations about that, maybe helping people who are interested in an adoption, maybe having some programming in place to help subsidize those costs. All right. Good exercise, you guys. All right. Go ahead. Oh, that's good. That's cool. Okay, how much time we got?
15 more.
Beautiful. All right, there's two more videos that I want to show you. One has to do with abortion procedures. Okay, so get yourself ready for that. It's done in a way that is not, well, the graphics on them are, it's not real. It's not real footage. But in the explanation is coming from a doctor, actually, who used to perform abortions. Now, I am not one. Oh, we're going to go with the other one. Yeah. This doctor, he performed abortions, and he makes the explanation too, but then one day, it just all looked different to him. It was different when he looked down and saw what he was actually doing. And so from that point on, he has made it a part of his mission to talk about it. Again, it is a choice that you're going to have to make, but he's been on the other side. And you know who else, as her life changed? The woman, and I believe her name was Norma McCrory, I think is her actual name. Or McCrory, that is the Jane Roe of Roe versus Wade. I was doing some research on her too, and read an article about her, and about 15 years after Roe versus Wade, she had the epiphany. She turned around. She actually ended up creating a nonprofit organization called No More Roe, which is a pro-life organization. I think I read that it shut down in like 2008, and she actually transitioned to be with the Lord in 2017. But that's that whole maturation process and change in perspective. You know, something makes sense to you as a teenager, but in your 20s, you look back and go, what was I thinking? Something makes sense to you in your 20s, you get to your 30s, you're like, wait a minute, what was that? What was I thinking? All I'm asking is take all this information in now, process it, and make decisions based upon what your heart is telling you. Your heart. That's where the Holy Spirit has taken up residence for those of us who have called the Christ our Lord and Savior. Make sure that is what you're listening to when it comes to your decision making. Let's listen to this gentleman. He does it in a very kind of cut and dry. It's not, he has some everyday language in there, but for the most part, he's talking like a doctor talks. It's just very, let's get to it. So let's go ahead and start it. Maybe we can back it up to the, yeah, there we go.
My name is Dr. Anthony Levatino. I'm a practicing obstetrician gynecologist, and I performed over 1,200 abortions. First, I'm going to describe a first trimester medical abortion. This is a procedure in which the mother swallows pills in order to terminate her baby, and it is performed up to the 9th week of pregnancy. The procedure involves 2 steps. Step 1. At the abortion clinic or doctor's office, the woman takes pills which contain mifepristone, also called RU46. RU46 blocks the action of a hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is naturally produced in the mother's body to stabilize the lining of the uterus. When RU46 blocks progesterone, the lining of the mother's uterus breaks down, cutting off blood and nourishment to the baby, who then dies inside the mother's womb. It is important to note that even after it has been taken, it is possible to reverse the effects of RU46 and save the baby if progesterone is administered. The sooner, the better. Step 2. 24 to 48 hours after taking RU46, the woman takes misoprostol, also called Cytotec, that is administered either orally or vaginally. RU46 and misoprostol together cause severe cramping, contractions, and often heavy bleeding to force the dead baby out of the woman's uterus. The process can be very intense and painful, and the bleeding and contractions can last from a few hours to several days. While she could lose her baby anytime and anywhere during this process, the woman will often sit on a toilet as she prepares to expel the child, which she will then flush. She may even see her dead baby within the pregnancy sac. At 9 weeks, for example, the baby will be almost an inch long, and if she looks carefully, she might be able to count the fingers and toes. After she has disposed of her baby, the woman may have bleeding and spotting for several weeks. Bleeding lasts, on average, 9 to 16 days. 8% of women bleed more than 30 days, and 1% require hospitalization because of heavy bleeding. RU46 is only FDA approved for the first 7 weeks of pregnancy. While RU46 can be used off-label up to 9 weeks, the failure rate increases as the pregnancy progresses. At 7 weeks, it has a 5% failure rate. At 8 weeks, an 8% failure rate, and at 9 weeks, a 10% failure rate. If failure occurs, she will usually be offered a surgical abortion. For the mother, medical abortion often causes abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, and heavy bleeding. Maternal deaths have occurred, most frequently due to infection and undiagnosed ectopic pregnancy. First trimester surgical abortion called suction DNC, dilatation and curettage. This is the most frequently performed abortion and is used typically from 5 to 13 weeks of pregnancy. After administering anesthesia, the abortionist uses a speculum like this. This is placed inside the vagina and opened using this screw on the side, allowing the abortionist to see the cervix, the entrance to the uterus. The cervix acts as a gate that stays closed for the duration of pregnancy, protecting the baby until it is ready for birth. The abortionist uses a series of metal rods called dilators, like these, which increase in thickness, and inserts them into the cervix to dilate it, gaining access to the inside of the uterus where the baby resides. The baby has a heartbeat, fingers, toes, arms, and legs, but its bones are still weak and fragile. The abortionist takes a suction catheter like this one. This is a 14 French suction catheter. It's clear plastic, about 9 inches long, and it has a hole through the center. It is inserted through the cervix into the uterus. The suction machine is then turned on with a force 10 to 20 times more powerful than your household vacuum cleaner. The baby is rapidly torn apart by the force of the suction and squeezed through this tubing down into the suction machine, followed by the placenta. Though the uterus is mostly emptied at this point, one of the risks of a suction D&C is incomplete abortion, essentially pieces of the baby or placenta left behind. This can lead to infection or bleeding. In an attempt to prevent this, the abortionist uses a curette to scrape the lining of the uterus. A curette is basically a long-handled curved blade. Once the uterus is empty, the speculum is removed and the abortion is complete. The risks of suction D&C include perforation or laceration of the uterus or cervix, potentially damaging intestine, bladder, and nearby blood vessels, hemorrhage, infection, and in rare instances, even death. Future pregnancies are also at a greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. Second trimester surgical abortion called dilatation and evacuation, or D&E. A D&E is performed between 13 and 24 weeks of pregnancy. After administering anesthesia, the abortionist uses a weighted speculum, like this one, that opens the vagina widely. Because second trimester babies are so large, this greater access facilitates a late-term abortion. Late-term abortion requires that the cervix be prepared 24 to 48 hours in advance with laminaria. Laminaria is a type of sterilized seaweed that absorbs water over 8 to 12 hours and swells to several times its original diameter. Once removed, metal dilators can be used to further open the cervix as needed. Once the cervix has been stretched open, the suction tube is placed inside. A baby at 20 weeks gestation is as big as the length of my hand, from head to rump, not counting the legs. The suction machine is turned on, and pale yellow amniotic fluid surrounding the baby is suctioned out through the catheters. With babies this big, they don't fit through catheters this size. The baby's bones and skull are too strong to be torn apart by suction alone. This is a Sofer clamp. A Sofer clamp is made of stainless steel. It's about 13 inches long. The business end is about 2.5 inches long and 1/2 inch wide, and there are rows of sharp teeth. This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. The abortionist uses this clamp to grasp an arm or leg. Once he has a firm grip, the abortionist pulls hard in order to tear the limb from the baby's body. One by one, the rest of the limbs are removed, along with the intestines, the spine, and the heart and lungs. Usually the most difficult part of the procedure is extracting the baby's head, which is about the size of a large plum at 20 weeks. The head is grasped and crushed. The abortionist knows he has crushed the skull when a white substance comes out of the cervix. This was the baby's brains. The abortionist then removes skull pieces. He removes the placenta and any leftover parts of the baby with a curette, scraping the lining of the uterus for any remaining tissue. The abortionist then collects the baby parts and reassembles them to make sure that there are 2 arms, 2 legs, and all the pieces. Once all the parts have been accounted for, the abortion is complete. For the woman, this procedure carries a significant risk of major complications, including perforation or laceration of the uterus or cervix, with possible damage to the bowel, bladder, and other maternal organs. Infection and hemorrhage can also occur, which can even lead to death. Future pregnancies are also at greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. Finally, I'm going to describe a 3rd trimester induced abortion, which is performed at 25 weeks to term. At this point, the baby is almost fully developed and viable, meaning he or she could survive outside the womb if the mother were to go into labor prematurely. Because the baby is so large and developed, this procedure takes 3 or 4 days to complete. On day 1, the abortionist uses a large needle to inject a drug called digoxin. Digoxin is generally used to treat heart problems, but a high enough dosage of digoxin will cause fatal cardiac arrest. The abortionist inserts the needle with the digoxin through the woman's abdomen or through her vagina and into the baby, targeting either the head, torso, or heart. The baby will feel it. Babies at this stage feel pain. When the needle pierces the baby's body and the digoxin takes effect, the life of the baby will end. The abortionist then inserts multiple sticks of seaweed called laminaria into the woman's cervix. They will slowly open up the cervix for delivery of a stillborn baby. While the woman waits for the laminaria to dilate her cervix, she carries her dead baby inside of her for 2 to 3 days. On day 2, the abortionist replaces the laminaria and may perform a second ultrasound to ensure the baby is dead. If the child is still alive, he administers another lethal dose of digoxin. The woman then goes back to where she is staying while her cervix continues to dilate. If she goes into labor and is unable to make it to the clinic in time, she will give birth at home or in a hotel. In this case, she may be advised to deliver her baby into a bathroom toilet. The abortionist then comes to remove the baby and clean up. If she can make it to the clinic, she will do so during her severest contractions and deliver her dead son or daughter. If the baby does not come out whole, then the procedure becomes a D&E, a dilation and evacuation, and the abortionist uses clamps and forceps to dismember the baby, piece by piece. Once the placenta and all the body parts have been removed, the abortion is complete. Late-term abortions have a high risk of hemorrhage, lacerations, and uterine perforations, as well as a risk of maternal death. Future pregnancies are also at a greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm Dr. Anthony Levatino, and in the early part of my career as an OBGYN, I performed over 1,200 abortions. One day, after completing one of those abortions, I looked at the remains of a preborn child whose life I had ended, and all I could see was someone's son or daughter. I came to realize that killing a baby at any stage of pregnancy for any reason is wrong. I want you to know today, no matter where you're at or what you've done, you can change. Make a decision today to protect the preborn. Thank you for your time. I will no longer do any more abortions. When you finally figure out that killing a baby that big for money is wrong, that it doesn't take you too long to figure out it doesn't matter if the baby is this big or this big or this big or maybe even this big.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello? Hello, hello, hello.
Check, check. Hey, my name is. Okay, I can't rap either, but it's like what I said was, welcome to the reality of what the medical science is behind the process. That is one of the, man, you just can't help but feel something. And that's what I'm about. I'm a critical thinker. I don't need a lot of emotion to make me go somewhere. I just need information. And when I saw that, it became very real to me that at the least, we need to have some restrictions in place. And what we see happening, that pinging and ponging of states, is you have some states who have passed laws where right up to the last minute, that last trimester, you can make whatever decision you need to make and it'll be fine. You've got some states who are like, no, we need to hold up, and it's the heartbeat, 5-6 weeks, but at that point, most people don't know that they're even pregnant. So there has to be a discussion that's had, and you kids are a part of it, okay? You're a part of it. So take the information and do with it what God would have you do. The last thing that I want to show you, and I hope that didn't trigger anybody. If it did, I'm not a counselor. I can probably hook you up. I can hook you up for sure. But something like that can sometimes hit triggers. The very last thing I want to show you is something that we want to give to you too. There's a few of these pins around, I think. But back in the 70s, there was another doctor. His name is Dr. Sacco. When all of the discussion was starting to happen with, abortion and legalizing it here, and then the actual decision, he was moved, much like the physician that we just saw. And his story is amazing, and what came out of that was something that's called the Precious Feet Pen. And I loved, when I was researching, how did this Precious Feet pen come to be? The Precious Feet, it's the actual size of a fetus's feet at 10 weeks, okay? And the story is amazing. So I'm just going to let him tell it, and then we'll see where we are as far as time. And I know that there's going to be a Q&A at some point, but can we go ahead and start that Precious Feet video? Yeah.
In 1970, long before the wide use of ultrasound technology, a single photo was taken which would have a tremendous impact on the pro-life movement. This photo was taken by Dr. Russell Sacco in Portland, Oregon, and the image in the photo, that of an unborn 10-week-old baby's feet, became the Precious Feet Pin, which has become the international symbol for those working to end abortion and to promote respect for life. As of 2010, 18 million Precious Feet Pins have been distributed throughout the world. This is the story behind that photograph.
My name is Dr. Russell Sacco, and I was a urologist at the time that I started looking at the business of abortion. Prior to the time that the Supreme Court of the United States determined that there was going to be freedom to do abortions, there were people who were fighting about that. And I knew, because I was a doctor, that abortions kill children. They kill human beings. And then I started reading some books, anatomical books, because we weren't taught about infant children early in their birth, that is, in their beginning. The beginning of human being was different than old people, but we were all human beings. And I was convinced that the Supreme Court would say you can't kill infant children, prenatal infant children. So when the Supreme Court decided that you could kill infant children, it was furious. I decided I'd better learn what's going on. Those people were saying that people that haven't been born yet, but they're still in the body and alive, that they're just pieces of whatever, just clutty stuff, miserable stuff. I would start discussing this with people. And at one time, I was at a hospital in eastern part of Portland, Oregon, and I was talking to a pathologist. And he also did not approve of abortions. And what he had been doing, he was supposed to take the children that had been killed and destroy the bodies. But he told me that he didn't do that because he just didn't like to do that. So he said, let me show you something, Russ. And he went and got a bucket, and he brought a bucket with formaldehyde. And in the bucket were about 7 or 8 infant bodies. It was a little bit shocking to me to see that, but there they were. And in discussing it with it and looking at it, I asked him if I could take those home and take pictures of them so that I could put it on slides and I could go around and give talks about how we should save and protect the prenatal children. So I took the bucket and I went home, and right away I went into my office and I took one body out at a time and I just took pictures of them. I took pictures of the little ones and the bigger ones, and I determined the time, the age that they were. And then one of the ones I decided to take was one that I would hold just the child's feet between my fingers. And the only reason I did that was because if I just took a picture of a small infant, prenatal infant, nobody would really be able to know how large that child is or was. So I put my fingers on that so that you could identify the size of my hand, and then you could identify the feet of the children. And that was all. I returned the bodies to the pathologist, and when the pictures came out, I looked at them and I thought, you know, the one with the hand and the feet is better than I thought. And I really thought it wasn't I that made that. I actually kind of thought that maybe God did that one for me. And so the pictures were getting around the world, and they called me up from Australia, and they wanted to know if there was a copyright on the picture. And I said, absolutely not. They said, and they asked if they had to pay me something. I said, absolutely not. If you look at the pictures and you are reasonable, you'll know immediately that infant prenatal children are being killed, murdered, if you will, and because of the Supreme Court and what they've done.
And as a gift, your leadership team has ordered some of those pins too, so if you were moved by that, you will have an opportunity to maybe take one of those as a reminder. Okay. So with that, I think that we come to the end of our presentation. Will there be
Q&A time for 30 minutes.
Okay. We're going to have some Q&A. You kids be blessed. May I pray for them? Pray for them real quick before we do the Q&A. Father God, we just come before you now, and we just honor you and thank you for being Elohim, the Creator. We thank you for being El Shaddai, Lord God Almighty. We thank you for being our provider, our peace, our wisdom. We thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, and for the sacrifice that you made, but more than that, for bringing him back to life so that now we can be reconciled to you through our belief in him. Father, I ask that if we as human beings who have been created in your image, if we have done anything to offend you, I apologize. We apologize again. We are brought to a place of humility. We thank you for your patience with us. We thank you for your strength and your power to overcome the things that try to get us out of your will. God, we trust you with everything that we have. I pray for these young people who are here today, that their hearts and minds, God, will be open to who they are in you. I pray a prayer of protection over each one of them. Whatever has come against them, God, I pray that they will be more than conquerors, that they will continue to stand. I pray for their futures. I pray for their future spouses. I pray for them as they are being prepared for future relationships. I pray for those who are walking in their calling right now. I pray for courage for them to continue. I pray provision for this house of God that has done so much to serve the next generation. I pray strength and protection over the shepherd of this house. I pray for his covenant with his wife. I thank you for this opportunity, and every day it is your will, your word, your way. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much, Pam, for the amazing presentation. All right, thank you. So now we're gonna continue our program with groups, small group, breakout session basically. Breakout session kan tuadingi, we will have 30 minutes and then we will return back here exactly at 11:30 to continue our Q&A time. So na tujuk zangfaten team leader polka question nan ralak jao mizan ka question lawena fe kan umpai ti chuna question lak kai na James in rakbomola. And then Pam, you will have 30-minute break, and then we will resume here at 11:30. Q&A ka hina sorry team leader po ka nan cha da lak daw la 11:30 akan rasal ding mo 11:30